let's get right to it. A lot of earnings coming after the bell, but a lot of action. Well, in the cash session today.
Yeah, kind of mellow, I feel like, in the equity trade. It's really been about the U.S. Treasury trade. Having said that, I am looking at the home builders down almost 2% here. That robust inflation print, CPI print, kind of diminishing the odds of a U.S. central bank rate cut. And, you think about how that plays into the mortgage market. So we see some pressure on that area.
Well, what happened to the pressure that we saw earlier in the session as a result of that hotter than expected CPI print? The NASDAQ 100 was down as much as 1.1%. Right now, it's higher. Did everybody, not get concerned about the price of?
Tim, that was 7.5 hours ago, Tim. What do you expect?
How resilient the equity market has
be nice
become.
To my co-host.
But to that point, Scarlett, a couple weeks ago we saw retail coming in, mom and pop buying the dip. Then we heard from Goldman Sachs that hedge funds were coming in and buying the dip. This just continues the theme that we've seen over the last couple weeks.
And it is a Wednesday. Remember, there's a story about how Wednesdays tend to be a little bit stronger for U.S. equities.
All right, we get the closing bells here in New York. A mixed bag, we'll call it here, though red across the screen for most of the major indices. But we should point out, where stocks open was a lot lower than where they're going to close today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down more than 200 points, but that's only a drop of about 0.5%. The S&P 500 looks like it's going to close lower by roughly 0.25 percentage point right now at that 6,051 level. And we should point out the S&P tested that 6,000 level earlier in the session, and it bounced off it hard. A signal here that there are a lot of dip buyers looking for entry points. The NASDAQ composite is going to finish out the day in the green by only by a fraction of a percent. The NASDAQ 100 up about 0.1%. And the Russell 2000, that's your laggard, lower on the day by 20 points or 0.9%.
Yeah, with those little moves, it's always important to dig into the index, which is what we do right now. You've got about 344 names lower in the S&P 500, Scarlett, 158 to the upside.
All right, let's take a look at the IMAP. A lot of red on that screen. In fact, only 2 sectors finishing in the green, and that's even barely. Consumer staples up about 0.25%. Communications services basically unchanged. The big losers of the day are energy stocks. Alix mentioned it earlier, 2.7% lower, with all 22 members in the red. Real estate investment trusts and materials also down about 0.7% and 0.9%.
All right, guys, let's get to some of the individual gainers here. And you've got CVS, your number one gainer in the S&P 500, up about 15% here. Company reported adjusted profits for the fourth quarter that topped expectations. Also reported medical costs in health insurance unit that was better than the average analyst estimate. We had analysts viewing the overall results as better than feared, and Baird actually calling it a solid first step in the right direction. Do we want to do those earnings?
Yeah, let's just get squeeze in some earnings here. Good. Trade desks, their shares moving lower here in the after hours trade, down about almost 19% here. This is an advertising platform. Adjusted EPS did beat in the most recent quarter at 59 cents a share. Street was looking for 54 cents. Revenue, though, was light, 741 million. Street was looking for roughly about 760 million. The company also gave a forecast for first quarter revenue that appeared to come in a little bit light, 575 million. The Street on average looking for 581 and change. And just real quickly, we should point out their EBITDA forecast for the first quarter, adjusted EBITDA, 145 million. Street was looking for 192 million. So that's a big part of the reason you're seeing the shares down 21%.
Yeah, wow, that's a big hit to the downside. Waiting for some more earnings. I'm going to go back to another gainer. Gilead Sciences up 7.5%, a top gainer on both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100. The company coming out a big fourth quarter beat, gave 2025 guidance that beat analyst estimates, and it also highlighted continued demand for its top-selling HIV medicine. So really another big mover to the upside. And here's something, not an everyday name, Upstart Holdings. It is an $8 billion market cap. AI lending marketplace reported stronger than expected fourth quarter results, provided an upbeat outlook. Stock shot up 32% in
what
today's
is this,
session.
2021?
I should put
this was a meme stock.
It's up 44% year to date, 22%. Speaking of a meme stock, 22% of the float is shorted. So nonetheless, you had a bunch of analysts raising their price targets on it. So there you go.
Meta? You didn't do Meta, Carol?
I did not do Meta.
Okay, 18 days.
Do not judge me.
18 days of gains for Meta.
Let's just wait for the 19th day and do it tomorrow.
Thank you, Scarlett.
Okay. NVIDIA shares today falling by 1.25%. I did want to look at shares of NVIDIA because just over 2 weeks ago, we were talking about that DeepSeek news where NVIDIA fell 17% in a single day. It's still down more than 11% from that January record. Shares fell today after that underlying U.S. inflation report last month rose by the most since March. Lyft shares having a tough day post earnings, down 8%. First quarter gross bookings outlook came in below Wall Street expectations. Due to cold weather, it hurt demand not just for rides, but also for those bike rentals. The company did also announce its first share buyback, pledging to purchase up to $500 million. Stock did fall today by 7.8%. And finally, Zillow shares plunged more than 9% today. The company gave a revenue forecast for the first quarter that fell short of the average analyst estimate. The company does expect to generate positive net income on a GAAP basis this year. It's its first profitable year, going all the way back to 2012. At least 3 banks raised their price targets. We did speak to the company's CEO, Jeremy Waxman, earlier. He told us he's still very cautious on housing. Even if rates don't go down this year, it won't affect the company's outlook for the year. They also announced this Redfin partnership. I asked, are you going to buy Redfin? I mean, it's like a $1.1 billion company. Zillow's like $18, $19 billion in market cap. He said no plans to do it as of right now.
All right, just taking a look at the bond market here, because that's honestly, guys, where a lot of the action was and stayed. The belly of the curve seeing that sell-off. That's where you saw the most dramatic moves. We also had the 10-year auction that came at 1 p.m. It really wasn't that great. The bid-to-cover ratio was below that 1-year average, the lowest in about 4 months. Really needed those higher yields to kick in to get demand. So now we sit at 4.62, you guys. We see the velocity of the move. At some point, does that then have a trickle-down effect when it comes to the equity market?
It's kind of interesting, too. We talk about the equity market reaction to that CPI report, and obviously the market did sort of recoup a lot of the losses, but then you look at what still finished down. Financials got hit, a lot of real estate REITs got hit as well. Carol.
All right, let's get to Cisco. Let's go right to the fiscal year revenue. Everybody wanted to know about the outlook for this company. So fiscal year revenue, Cisco sees it at 56 to 56.5 billion. That is above what the street was expecting. They were looking for 55.3 to 56.3 billion. Seeing Cisco just up about 1%. It's boosting its quarterly dividend to 41 cents a share, which is what everybody was expecting. And here's a big deal. It boosts its buyback authorization by $15 billion. Investors tend to like that. It's up about 2% here in the aftermarket.
All right. Well, I'm looking at shares of Robinhood in the after hours right now. The company did report earnings just now. Shares of Robinhood higher by 8% as we speak. Fourth quarter crypto revenue coming in above estimates at $358 million. Fourth quarter net revenue beating estimates, coming in at $1.01 billion. First fourth quarter EPS coming in at $1.01. Fourth quarter net deposits coming in above estimates at $16.1 billion. Also, their assets under custody in the fourth quarter beating estimates at $193 billion. Shares higher right now by 9%.
All right, let's also get you MGM Resorts. That company reporting fourth quarter adjusted EPS of 45 cents, more than double, or I should say almost double what analysts had been anticipating, which was a 27-cent EPS. Fourth quarter net revenue, $4.35 billion, also higher than anticipated. And when you look beneath the numbers, you look at Las Vegas Strip Resorts net revenue, that was down about 6% year over year, slightly missing estimates. And MGM China net revenue up about 3.7%, slightly higher than what was anticipated.
I'm just taking a look at Dutch Bros, guys. That stock is soaring in post-market. It beat for the fourth quarter on earnings as well as revenue. And then they also see their total full year 2025 revenue on the high end. That's also a beat. And their adjusted EBITDA earnings also a beat as well. That stock up significantly post-market.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to go back to Robinhood here as we watch the shares tick higher here in the after-hours session. And we talk about the reliance on crypto revenue in that most recent quarter, about a third of its revenue growth. And the big question is, can you actually continue that pace going forward? Is that going to represent a third of their revenue for the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter on, or should we expect sort of a little bit of a receding in that contribution?
Hey, I want to go back to Cisco because it's up about 6% in the aftermarket. We mentioned that forecast for revenue, which is above what Street was expecting, driven by companies' increased spending on computing infrastructure for AI technology. This was a big question. They wanted to see, whether or not that spend is continuing to happen, and it looks like it does. We mentioned the company raising its fiscal 2025 target target to over $56 billion, citing strong product orders and revenue growth, with sales rising 9% to $14 billion in the fiscal second quarter. So again, we've got Cisco shares up about 4.5% here, Romaine.
Reddit actually now reporting earnings. That's just crossing the wire. Those fourth quarter numbers looking good on the surface. 154.3 million in adjusted EBITDA, well above what the street was looking for of 128.7. ARPU in the quarter, 4.21. The street was looking for 3.91. Here's your guidance, though. The company's saying first quarter revenue will be in the range of 360 to 370 million. The low end of that range is above the average of street estimates here. The company also saying that it expects to see some continued strength on EBITDA as well, 80 to 90 million. That's the EBITDA forecast is giving for the first quarter. The street was looking on average for 72.3, though you see the shares significantly lower here in the after hours trade, down 12%. We're going to dive a little bit deeper in to see why the market reaction is what it is.
All right, perhaps a decliner for Tim tomorrow, and I know a gainer for me. Dutch Brothers still up about 25% in the aftermarket.
Dutch Bros.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that how you say it?
Is it? I've never
Have you guys been?
We've just said we've never been.
I think we're in the wrong region.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Dutch Bros. All right, I stand
right.
corrected. All right. That's
All
a
right,
wrap. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow. That's a wrap. Our cross-platform radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow.